Hello, I am Dr. Janet Bird, and I am a board-certified behavior analyst. Today's presentation is going to be on how applied behavior analysis can be used to influence behavior by making changes in the environment and by the reinforcing consequences of that behavior. As an instructor, you will learn how to quantify the behavior, predict the behavior, and consequently control the behavior. The environments will be arranged so they make very likely the behaviors we want probable and very unlikely the behaviors we want to be improbable. I hope to convey this message by looking at the order of the Mass and establishing classroom discipline. Let's take a look, first of all, at the cognitive development of our students. And that is, you would need a child development chart. On a child development chart, as you can see, it has the different stages of development from the ages of 4 all the way to the age of 13. And so, as you can look at, what we're going to do is look at their fine motor skills so that you know how much writing can they do. We'll also look at their gross motor skills so that you know what types of physical activities they can engage in. We'll also look at their social skills at these different ages, where they are able to come out of themselves to be a part of a group, or this is something that you have to teach them, how to be a part of a group. Next of all is their language. What development in language do they have so that you can tailor your instruction to match their language ability? And finally, their cognitive skills to know how fast they can master material and what different types of arrangements you need to make in the environment so that they can master those cognitive skills. And so our first, the most important thing about applied behavior analysis is to have a motivating operation. We have always said, or the saying goes, you can bring a horse to water, but you cannot make them drink. You can bring a child to God, but if a child is not ready to accept God, you cannot force them. And so how do we set up this motivating operation to have children want God in their lives? And so we have to ask ourselves as adults, when do we most go to God? Do we go to God when we're happy? Or do we go to God when we have problems? Do we go to God when we're trying to realize our goals? Finally, do we realize we are powerless without God because we cannot overcome our own problems or our own sins? Then we're looking at, well, how do children thirst for God? Or how can we have children teach them how to thirst for God? Well, children, they too have problems. In their homes, they may be dealing with fighting parents that are getting ready to get a divorce, or separation, or domestic violence, or learning to deal with death of a loved one. In school, they have a lot of other things to deal with. They may have unskilled teachers, of course not you, but they may have other unskilled teachers. They may be facing poor grades. They may be lonely, or they may be bullied, or they may be the subject of gossip, or they just may have things that children are afraid of. They're afraid of the dark, they're afraid of monsters, or things to that nature. The motivating operation then, using the parts of the Mass, is then going to help us establish classroom discipline. So when we are at church, are our souls thirsting for God? And the behaviors in the classroom, in the religious education class, are the children in a state of grace to receive the Lord? Are the children thirsting for God? One of the motivating operations then is, when Christ suffered, he called his Father. And when children suffer, they usually call their parents, or what we're trying to teach them is to also call for God. And what we're trying to do is set up the environment so that when they walk into our classrooms, right away they feel the peace of God. And it may be something as simple as having religious music. Okay, so you can see that the music sets the tone, and it sets the tone in a different way to bring you to peace, to seek God. Now, there are different types of motivating operations. There is unconditioned motivating operations. These are where we need to sleep, we're thirsty, we need to breathe, we have pain. Nobody has to teach us that we are thirsty or that we're hungry and that we need food. However, a conditioned motivating operation is something that we learn. For example, the use of an umbrella is a learned behavior. We're trying to get away from the rain, and we see someone using an umbrella quickly because we have a motivating operation. We learn how to use the umbrella. For example, a can opener is really something that is a utensil that doesn't really mean anything. However, if you're hungry, the value of that can opener is very motivating. Therefore, deprivation increases the value of the item. And so we look into the classroom. What are some of the motivating operations in the classroom? Well, it's certainly nice in the classroom to have friends, to be a leader in the classroom. And how do we know how the chemistry of the classroom is working? Well, there is something called the sociometrics of the classroom. And these types of instruments are, of course, available online, but you can also create them yourself. So, for example, you would ask the children, I would choose to sit near these children, or I would choose not to sit near these children. I would choose to work with these children. I would choose not to work with these children. I would choose to play with these children. I would not choose to play with these children. And so you can get the idea, because you don't want to put in your subjective data where you may feel, oh, little Johnny must be the most popular in the class because I find little Johnny the most agreeable in the class. The rest of the students may not find him the most agreeable. And therefore, a sociometric questionnaire would let you know, well, who is the most popular? And because that most popular person is probably going to be our first disciple in spreading the word of God. And what it is then, we try to have that role model and give that role model the attention in the classroom, because we want that role model to have the rest of the children in the class follow that role model. So one of the applied behavior analysis principles is that students will imitate someone that is of their same age, of their same gender, because they will associate with them a great deal faster than they would imitate you as the classroom teacher. And therefore, those students that are perhaps disorganized in your class or need another direction, to have a classroom buddy that they already look up to, show them the way. The entrance of the Mass then shows us that when we should all have reverence when we're walking to Mass. And the entrance of the Mass then is really to remind us of how Jesus walked to Calvary and his death on the cross for us when he said, "It is finished." When we have the children walk into our classroom, they should walk in with the same reverence then that parishioners walk into Mass with, and stand up when the priest, which is representative of Christ walking to Calvary, they should be taught how to walk into the classroom, because if you take care of those details of how they should walk into the classroom, you are already preventing classroom discipline problems, because you are stopping the problems even before they start in the hallway. And so we use prompts on the floor. If a child is told to keep at shoulder length from the child in front of him or her, and if you put masking tape on the floor where you're telling the children, we are playing a game where you have to stay on the floor, it's almost like walking on a tightrope, but then you're taking off that concentration of, I want to hit my friend, which is a prompt. My friend is there. It would be really nice to just shove him a little bit, because that is human contact. But now I am playing this where I have to look at the floor and I have to stay on this line. And really staying on this line creates order immediately, because the children are walking on a straight line, and they always walk to the right and in a straight line. So again, even if there's any point where you have to get them out of a building quickly, they go out quickly in an orderly way, and no one is tripping over each other. And so now we look at the entrance of the Mass. And again, there are a great deal of prompts throughout the entire Mass. And so when you see the priest kissing the altar, that is a prompt, that's an outward sign that tells us, gee, that must be something so precious, because this priest is kissing this altar. And then in the same way that the priest has this reverence for the altar, we as the classroom teacher, we model this reverence in the way that we start our classroom. And that is why you always need the enthronement before you start a class in religion. So religion is not taught like history or math or science. It is an affective domain. And therefore, so when the children come in, you already have the candle, the Bible, the crucifix, and it is in a very special place in front of the classroom, where you as the classroom teacher show the reverence for this enthronement, just the way the priest kisses the altar. And again, with every detail that is in a Mass, because the details are very important, we also take care of every detail. So as the children are even coming into the classroom, before they're at the threshold of the classroom, you may want to say, please tuck in your shirt, because it's not even getting to the point where they're talking. Now it's, tuck in your shirt. This is a very special place. And so you want to have class rules, and you want to practice this class rules from the first day in September till the last day in June. And why do rules work? Because if we don't follow the rules, we have to rehearse the rules all over again. And everybody wants to take the path of least resistance. So if it means I follow the rules, I don't have to practice them. If I don't follow the rules, I have to practice them. And one of the major reasons that happens is when teachers let go of rehearsing the rules too early, because they figure, oh, okay, everything's fine. No, everything's not fine. You have to keep then the rules on maintenance, so that the first time you're reading them straight through till June. And now when we look at pay attention to details in the classroom, every priest that goes into any Catholic church, they can be a substitute at any different Catholic church, because everything is in the same place and everything is labeled. And the same way that God knows every hair on your head, you as the classroom teacher should take the time to know every detail about your students' preferences and about their interests. So, for example, I would do on the first class, and if you can see in our remember that God is always teaching with you in the classroom. So you must behave knowing that God is right next to you. Would you start ha 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 or laughing with your co-teacher? I don't think that you would. And by the same token, you don't do that because the children are there to imitate also your behavior. And so I do an interest inventory with the students before I even meet them. I send it to the parents and I ask them first of all about health issues. Is the child prone to seizures? Does the child have any allergies? And we all know about the peanut allergies, but there are certainly a lot other allergies that I as a classroom teacher should know. Especially, what are their favorite TV shows? For example, the Baby Einstein videos, why are they no longer around? Well, because they retarded children's vocabulary development. That's why they are no longer popular. And so you really have to know, what is it that my child, my students are watching? Some of the cartoons that they're watching are literally teaching them that being rude and sarcastic is really a wonderful thing. And that's something that we as classroom teachers would have to show them that, no, that's not the way to behave. After we get to know what their interests are, we then go into what is the best that they like about when they go to church? What is it that they like most to look at? Because you will see children looking around in church. Do they like the pictures? Some parents will sit their children right in front of the organist because they know their child wants to look at the music. Or sometimes it's the chorus, when the chorus is playing, because some children like music. Do they like rosary beads? What is it about religion? What does it for you? Some people feel that after they've watched It's a Wonderful Life, now it feels like Christmas. So maybe it's a movie that they prefer to watch. Whatever it is, you want to be able to know what is it about religion, or what aspect of religion speaks to them the most, so that you can make sure that this is represented in your classroom. And again, there are plenty of websites that give you preference assessment for religion, and I provide you with